everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, think about it. One moment, you're the multi-million-dollar cornerstone of a historic franchise, the absolute face of the future. And the very next, you were just a casualty of the salary cap. Welcome to NFL Nexus, the place where we pull back the curtain on the most ruthless, high-stakes, and completely unforgiving aspects of professional football. Before we go any further into the dark side of roster building, I need you to do a few things. Subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below on what you thought about these massive, landscape-altering roster shifts. And please, if you love what we do here, support the channel by becoming a channel member. Today, we're taking a cinematic journey. We are starting in the pristine, air-conditioned boardrooms of the National Football League, where tens of millions of dollars are manipulated with the stroke of a pen, and we're going to end up on the gritty, desperate turf of a UFL team that is quite literally fighting for its survival in its home city. The tension in these front offices is absolutely suffocating. The consequences are very real, and the margin for error, it is literally zero. Let's get started.
Okay, let's map out exactly how we're going to explore these incredible narratives today. First, we'll look at the June 1st checkpoint. Then, realizing Packers cap space. Third, we dive into the Colts roster decisions. Fourth, the Aviators fall flat. And finally, number 5, the brutal battle of I-71.
Section 1. The June 1st checkpoint. To truly understand NFL roster building, you first have to understand the cyclical calendar. The NFL year isn't just about Sundays in the fall, right? It's this meticulously structured timeline of massive financial checkpoints. And the absolute most critical bridge between the frenzy of free agency and the quiet summer moratorium is June 1st. Now, this isn't just a date on a calendar. In the front offices of the NFL, this is a hard deadline. It's a financial threshold that can literally make or break a team's ability to compete for a Super Bowl. But to grasp why June 1st is so incredibly monumental, we have to clearly define a term that strikes absolute fear into the hearts of executives and fans alike: dead money. Listen, dead money is basically the ghost of a franchise's past mistakes. It is a cap charge for a player who is no longer even on the roster. It consists of their remaining prorated bonus money and their guaranteed salary. So I want you to really imagine this. Imagine your favorite team paying millions upon millions of dollars to a guy who is currently sitting on his couch, or worse, playing for your direct, bitter rival. That's dead money. This single terrifying concept dictates whether a struggling player gets a second chance or a one-way ticket out of town. It is the ultimate, undeniable punishment for handing out a bad contract.
Let's look at this quote from Sports Illustrated's Mike Kadlick, because he perfectly summarizes the insane stakes here. He notes, when that same move occurs after June 1, however, teams are able to spread that dead cap hit over 2 seasons instead of taking the entire hit in 1 year. Think about the sheer weight of that strategy for a second. If a general manager makes a huge mistake in March and cuts a guy, the team pays for it entirely in the current year. It completely cripples their ability to sign new talent. They're paralyzed, stuck. But by simply waiting for the calendar to flip to June, they buy themselves life-saving breathing room. They push that financial pain down the road. It's a high-stakes game of financial chess. Teams will patiently, agonizingly wait out the entire spring, keeping players in total limbo just to utilize this specific loophole.
And this breakdown brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast in cap strategy based entirely on the exact date a player is released. Pre-June 1st, the entire dead cap hit accelerates to the current year. It hits you like a freight train, all at once. There's nowhere to hide, no way to soften the blow. But post-June 1st, the hit is spread across 2 seasons. It dulls the impact, allowing the franchise to breathe, adapt, and actually reinvest in other players. This simple mechanic perfectly explains why you always see a sudden, explosive wave of releases and trades in the very first week of June. It's not a coincidence, folks. It's cold, it's calculated, and it's entirely by design. The smallest administrative detail, literally just the turn of a calendar page, completely changes the entire landscape of the league.
Section 2. Realizing Packers cap space. Let's move to a real-world case study. We are heading to Green Bay. Now, the Packers aren't historically known for reckless spending, but recently they found themselves burdened by a few contracts that simply were not panning out the way they hoped. But instead of panicking, they played the waiting game. They utilized the post-June 1 designation to perfectly manipulate their salary cap, and the result was staggering. $11.442 million. Pause and really look at that number. That is not just spare change. In the National Football League, that is championship-altering money. That is the total cap space Green Bay instantly gained on June 2nd. With this massive, sudden influx of capital, the Packers can now go out and hunt for key veteran free agents. They can extend their young foundational stars to keep their core intact, or maybe even smarter, they can hold on to those emergency funds for mid-season trades when the inevitable injury bug strikes. They magically created over $11 million of pure roster flexibility simply by timing their administrative paperwork flawlessly. It's brilliant.
But listen, every single dollar saved comes with a very real human cost. It's a story of massive expectations falling spectacularly short. The Packers paid the ultimate price for deals that backfired horribly in 2025. Look at Nate Hobbs. Just last year, they handed this guy a massive 4-year, $48 million contract. He was supposed to be a lockdown corner for half a decade. He was the guy. But one rough season, and he is gone. Unceremoniously released with a post-June 1 designation. And then there's the kicker, Brandon McManus. He was given a 3-year, $15.3 million extension, also released. The absolute brutality of the NFL is on full display here. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday, it only matters what you cost tomorrow. Hobbs has actually already packed his bags and signed with the 49ers. So the Packers basically admitted their massive multi-million-dollar mistakes, cut their losses completely, and used the calendar to survive the financial fallout.
Breaking it down even further, this specific massive amount, $8.83 million, that was saved against the cap just from releasing Nate Hobbs alone. Because Green Bay waited until after June 1st, they were able to split his dead money perfectly down the middle. So they absorb a digestible $4 million this year and $4 million in 2027. If they had cut him in May, oh man, they would have been completely paralyzed by the entire acceleration of that massive $48 million contract's guarantees. What is truly staggering here is realizing that this single administrative delay, just waiting a few agonizing extra weeks while fans are screaming for moves, gave the Packers the exact financial ammunition they needed to remain legitimate contenders in the NFC.
Section 3. Colts Roster Decisions.
Now, let's look at another franchise dealing with the extreme, crushing pressure of the offseason. We are shifting over to the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are in a totally unique pressure cooker right now. They have a roster balancing on a razor's edge. They're navigating injuries, massive fan expectations, and a defensive scheme change. Every single cut or trade they even consider right now carries massive franchise-altering weight. Take a look at Anthony Richardson Sr., the 4th overall pick of the 2023 draft. He's carrying a $10.8 million cap hit. Cutting him, that saves absolutely $0. It's completely dead money. But trading him, that saves them $5.38 million. Meanwhile, you have Grover Stewart, a beloved 33-year-old veteran anchor in the final year of his deal. Cutting him saves a staggering $12.25 million instantly. And then there's Jalon Jones. He's entering the final year of his rookie deal. A cut here saves $3.74 million. You are looking at 3 incredibly complex, emotional, and financial crossroads. These aren't just names on a spreadsheet. These decisions will dictate the entire future of the Indianapolis Colts.
This specific situation presents the ultimate brutal dichotomy of the National Football League: money versus scheme. Cutting Grover Stewart would save a massive $12.25 million. That is a pure, cold financial decision that would absolutely rip the heart and soul out of that defensive line. But letting go of Jalon Jones, that move would be purely about his disconnect with defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo's specific scheme. Jones is highly talented. We know he has the physical traits. But if you don't fit the defensive coordinator's puzzle perfectly, your physical talent simply does not matter. It brilliantly and somewhat tragically illustrates that in this league, you can be cut because you simply cost too much money, or you can be cut just because you don't fit the new director's vision. The end result is exactly the same either way. You are out.
Section 4. Aviators Fall Flat.
We're going to pivot now, and I really need you to feel the massive shift in atmosphere here. We are moving from the macro millions in the pristine boardrooms of the NFL straight into the micro, gritty, desperate reality of the UFL gridiron. In spring football, players aren't fighting over multi-million-dollar cap hits or post-June 1st designations. No, they are fighting for game tape. They are fighting desperately for an elusive NFL training camp invite. And in the case of the Columbus Aviators, they were fighting for the very existence of their franchise in their home city. Just look at the chaotic, absolutely breathless back-and-forth momentum of the first half of their season finale. Literally, on the very first offensive play of the game, quarterback Jalen Morton throws a devastating pick six. It's an absolute disaster right out of the gate. But he battles back. Midway through the first, he throws a touchdown pass to Kiki Chisholm to reclaim the fire. Then, at the end of the first quarter, something you will literally only see in the wild, experimental world of the UFL happens. Jonah Dalma steps up and kicks an incredible, mind-bending 61-yard, 4-point field goal. Are you kidding me? The sheer adrenaline of that moment was unbelievable. And by the time we hit the 111 mark of the second quarter, a Toa touchdown run ties this absolute war at 21-21. This wasn't just a football game. This was a heavyweight title fight where neither side refused to go down.
Section 5. The Battle of I-71.
Let's see how all that explosive energy builds into the decisive, absolutely brutal second half. They call it the Battle of I-71. It's a bitter rivalry game against the Louisville Kings. Rivalry games are where legends are born and where entire seasons are completely broken. The Aviators came out of the locker room knowing that their pride, their 2026 record, and potentially their entire future in Columbus were hanging on the line. But here is exactly how the dream died. Here is how Louisville systematically took over. In the third quarter, Columbus managed to move the ball, but they critically failed to punch it into the end zone. They settled. They kicked a 49-yard field goal and then a 51-yard field goal. Sure, they took a narrow 28-27 lead, but listen to me. In professional football, settling for field goals when your opponent is hungry for blood, it leaves the door wide open. And the Louisville Kings didn't just walk through that open door. Their offensive line kicked it down. In the fourth quarter, the Kings' running game completely imposed its physical will on an exhausted, battered Aviators defense. They methodically marched down the field, dictating the terms of the game, and scored 2 final rushing touchdowns to violently pull away.
This staggering number right here emphasizes the sheer, unstoppable force of Louisville's ground game that ultimately broke the Aviators' defense. 205 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. You really have to understand the absolute physical toll of giving up over 200 yards on the ground. It is demoralizing. It means your defensive line is being violently pushed backwards on every single snap. It is a slow, agonizing defeat. You know exactly what the opponent is going to do. They're going to run the ball right at you, and you are utterly powerless to stop them. Your lungs burn, your legs feel like lead, and they just keep coming. Louisville didn't trick Columbus. They didn't dial up some genius complex passing scheme to outsmart them. No, they simply battered them into absolute submission to claim victory in the Battle of I-71.
So the Columbus Aviators' rough season ends with a devastating thud. Look at the final score. Louisville 42, Columbus 27. The Kings get to go home as the victors of the rivalry, but you have to look at the bottom line for the Aviators here. A completely dismal 3-7 finish. They end their 2026 season cemented at the absolute bottom of the league. Dead last. For the players in that locker room, it is a crushing blow to their morale and, more importantly, to their professional tape. This is the tape they need to feed their families and try to make the NFL. For the coaching staff, a 3-7 record is a resume nightmare. But for the front office, finishing dead last triggers an even darker, more existential crisis for the entire organization.
Which brings us to the ultimate, haunting cliffhanger. We have to ask ourselves, with front office stakes this incredibly high across all professional leagues, what does the future actually hold for the Columbus Aviators next year? After finishing dead last with an abysmal 3-7 record, will the UFL trust the Columbus market with another season in 2027? Or will this struggling franchise be ripped away from its loyal fans and forced to relocate to another city entirely? Think about everything we've covered today. Whether it's the Green Bay Packers manipulating millions of dollars in dead cap space, the Indianapolis Colts deciding the financial fate of their beloved veterans, or a UFL team out of Columbus fighting for its very right to exist, the business of football is completely unforgiving. And this story is far from over. Thank you for joining me on NFL Nexus. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, comment down below on what you thought about all of this, and support us by becoming a channel member. I will see you all in the next one.